Oh, I don't hear a song.
Strings up, she's in the zone, breaking it down from her comfy throne. Smart as hell with a side of flair, politics sass and a killer stare. Crazy's lurking tail in the frame, chat's already playing their games. That target day, sharp and bold, hot takes drop while the chaos unfolds. Truth with bite filled in the way, still showing up every streaming day. Brains and vibes, she leads the pack. Now buckle in, no looking back. That dark night, let's go!
Come on, man.
What were you were you impatient? You couldn't hear it.
I couldn't hear anything. I thought I might disconnect or something.
Oh, so you saw it? Could you see it?
Yeah, I could only see that.
Well, I enjoyed it, guys. I hope you guys could hear it.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so Gamer could hear it.
But
StreamYard has been...
Hmm?
You enjoyed the numbers. You enjoyed them. There we go. I'm the Meowderator. Yeah, that's me. Hi, Cal. So, guys, yes. StreamYard, right off the bat, let's just get StreamYards out of the way. StreamYards has been full of crap. Okay, with these two. It's not just with these two, but just clearly. Wade could not hear the music, but Gamer could. There is no difference between their settings, everybody, but somehow they just cannot hear it. Okay, cool. So sometimes we figured out this weekend that there is a possibility that sometimes Wade can't hear Gamer and Gamer can't hear Wade. So we're going to just keep an eye out for that technical issue. But I don't feel like anybody's surprised by technical issues on a Kitteh stream. So we're good. We're okay with that, right? If you were wondering what we're doing here, we're doing a debate, and I'm Meowderating. The whole idea is to continue my learning to be a moderator arc, and this is my first practice debate. And I've had two very lovely panelists from the chat who have volunteered to not only do their first debate ever online. It's not like they haven't argued before, but yes, they're doing it on my channel, the first YouTube debate they've ever experienced, and it's mine. So I'm very very grateful. And yes, as to who they are, guys, these are not just random people. Okay, they've become regulars in the past few weeks, and I really appreciate their insights and their questions in the chat during the live streams. So that's also why it's not that just they were the only people that would have argued. It's actually like I really want to have a good conversation with them. So that's also why I accepted these two. And the let's introduce them. So on this side, okay, is Wade O'Donoghue.
That's the one.
And he will be arguing. We'll get more into the topic, but he will be arguing from the layperson's point of view. He'll be arguing this lab leak theory of where COVID came from. It's seeming like it came from a lab. That's basically where he's at. If I'm mistaken, correct me.
Yep.
Okay, good. And then Atheist Gamer, another regular now. Also equally insightful questions and interaction in the chat. Really appreciate it. Gamer is also okay. So he's arguing for the natural origin of COVID-19, and also he comes with the added experience of having studied molecular biology at a university level, and also he's worked in labs, so He knows about that stuff. So he's coming from the not lay person, really, side of the debate. Okay, Daisy, you're sitting on my notes. This really helps. Thanks. Right. So, yeah, intro to the topic. So, right, this is the topic that we're actually talking about. If you didn't hear me correctly, we're talking about COVID-19. These two somehow started arguing about it in chat. Is that how you guys got to it?
That's
Yep.
correct.
Yeah. So that's why they volunteered this debate. For me to moderate, because they had spoken about it in chat. So it was like, okay, cool. I am skeptical about, just to let you guys know where I stand on the topic. I'm skeptical about where COVID came from, but I'm not strongly agree, strongly disagree. I'm kind of I'm neutral, which kind of helps being a moderator. And yeah, just in terms of the topic, something to tell you is a disclaimer. We're not trying to inform you of how to live your lives health-wise and all of that. We're actually just having a debate about something that occurred in our lives. It's a very important topic. We all had different experiences of COVID. So it's worth talking about where this thing came from and what we think of the information we were given. What did we pick? So that's why we're talking about it. So yeah, go and do your research and go to the authorities to figure out what you think about COVID. But here we're just having a conversation. So please don't cancel me. Yeah. Also, just another note about this disagreement. It's not a very clear-cut one. When we just had a bit of a discussion about it, yes, there is disagreement between Wade and Atheist, but it seems like it's not as clear-cut as I am for abortion and I am against abortion. So it's not going to be this blood sports kind of, this is what we thought. It's not going to be this blood sports kind of debate. It's going to be more of an exploratory conversation, which I'm very happy for us to get into it. So, yeah, next, Daisy, if we can go. Okay, thank you. So, introduction to the format. The format is kind of formatless. The only thing that we do is I'm going to give each person, a few minutes to just give us their basic arguments, their basic position on either side, and then we'll just go into a general discussion, asking questions. I would like the panelists to ask questions of each other. I also have questions myself. So yeah, without further ado, I'd also, just one more thing. If they do start talking over each other, I will mute their asses, but I don't think they're going to be that bad. Just a reminder, look guys, we've tried to figure out Atheist Gamer's audio. He is going to be slightly lower audio than me and Wade. Just deal with it. We've tried. We've figured it out as far as we can. Hey, when I clip this, I'll just increase his volume. Here you go. Right, I think that's it.
Okay, who's
All right.
going first?
Who wants to go first? Shall we flip a coin?
So I vote Wade goes first if he's okay with that, because from my position it seems he's coming with a claim about the origin. That's so I think he ought to, the burden of proof is on Wade in my opinion, from my position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry, just a reminder. Sorry, it was because Daisy was sitting on my lap, my notes. Just so you know, what's the name? I've told the panelists not to look at chats. They can't really anyway because of the format we're in on StreamYard. So they are not looking through the chat. Put your questions in chat and your comments in chat. I will keep an eye on them. And then we can have a bit of, after the conversation, I'll bring up things that you have asked. If I ignore you, or if I haven't gotten to your question, just keep asking, okay? But just reminder, the conversation is between Wade and Atheist, not you and them. Cool. So Wade, are you okay to go first?
Yeah, 100%.
Sweet.
Okay. just to give background of where I'm coming from, I'm a South African, and I grew up here in South Africa. And there was a case here with a family called the Guptas. And basically, what they did is they got involved in government in the back doors, and they started using their money and their influence to do what's called state capture, where they basically start taking over the government from inside, kind of like a virus, um, capturing the power station, the railway station, things like that. And they were caught like halfway through the process, and it was a big deal to South Africans because none of us knew it was happening, and we're like, oh, what the hell? Like, this family is about to own like the country through the government. So I feel one should be wary of scaly happenings in life, people that do things in the dark, things that happen that can even come from through official means, that might not be above board. On the other side, the authority, science, all these things, we rely on it for our medicine and for our structures and our economy. So we can't be without it either. So I think one should be critical, but also I am a person who's also wary of facts and things. So I am a bit skeptical about things often. On the COVID subject, where shall we start? When the breakout happened, 2019. Originally, USA didn't want to even contemplate the possibility of a lab leak at all. And then I think like only a few months later did Biden say, okay, let's investigate if a lab leak is even possible. So that's a bit weird to me. Like, if you're a person of science, both sides of the argument should be open for investigation from the start, and you should investigate both sides. Why the lab leak hypothesis was not even up for investigation was a bit weird. Then in 2020, through my research, I found that the Germany's Federal Intelligence Service released a report where they said it's an 80 to 90% chance that there was an accidental lab leak of the COVID virus. 2024, the US Congress did a report where they said that there's gain of function research that was done at the Wuhan lab that was funded by the NIH, National Institute of Health, that could have contributed to the development of COVID through the lab. Currently, the Central Intelligence Agency in the USA, or actually 2025, the 7th of April, they released, I think it was a report where they say a leak is possible, but they have low confidence of it. When I read through basically the how can you say, the scientific community's chats, it seems like there's two schools, even amongst the people who have the degrees and have done the studies about the possibilities, whether it was natural causes or whether it was man-made. So for a lay person, it's not easy for a person like myself who doesn't necessarily understand all the minutiae and how it exactly works to know who to trust about this situation. On the subject of COVID-2 itself, COVID-1 came around, I think it was around 2012, 2013, something like that. I think it killed or infected 6,000 people. I'm speaking under correction, but it had a 10% mortality rate, which makes it 10 times as deadly as COVID-2. So COVID-1 is 10 times more deadly than COVID-2. But what makes COVID-2 so intense, it's 10 to 20 times more infectious. So it spreads much quicker than the original COVID. I think that might be why we call it a novel disease. I think it's novel in the sense that it's different. I'm not exactly sure where that novel comes from. Other things is that COVID-2 seems to have a limited diversity across its genome, where COVID-1 and MERS, which is the Middle Eastern version, or like kind of, it's a similar thing, but it happened in the Middle East. They do seem to have diversity in them. Also, the infection rate of COVID on the animals that were supposedly the vectors of transmission is quite low from what I pick up. So COVID infects humans very readily, but if we try and infect bats or pangolins with this COVID that we have now, it doesn't seem to be as infectious. And even if we take the first instance, the very first COVID virus we found, even that first one seems to be not very infectious to the animals. So if it had just recently jumped from an animal to a human, it should still be quite infectious to the animal as well, I would think. The closest viruses that we could find to COVID-2 is the RATG13 and the HKU9 viruses. Those are from bats in caves around China, about 8 hours drive from the Wuhan food market where the outbreak supposedly happened. So some people postulate that these two viruses somehow mixed into one virus that ended up being the COVID-2 virus, and then somehow transported itself from that rural area into the middle of the market, which is weird because there was two strains found in the market. So it seems unlikely to me that two strains of the virus would end up in exactly the same market. Also, another person I saw said that if the RATG13 virus had to evolve naturally, it would take about 40 years for it to turn into COVID-2. So that means that COVID would have been around or would have been on its way for the last 40 years. And as far as I understand, the natural side of the argument hasn't found the virus within an animal as of yet. They've, and Atheist, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. As far as I know, it's postulated that it's possible, but we haven't found the smoking gun as of yet. Unfortunately, the Chinese didn't have the best cooperation when it came to investigating this whole pandemic story. They destroyed the animals in the Wuhan food market before any samples could have been collected from them. If we could have collected samples from those animals, we probably wouldn't be having this debate today, and I think a lot of people would not have had all the debates around the lab leak or natural cause situation. On this, just quick, a few things on China. They did cooperate with the World Health Organization to do an investigation where they said a lab leak is very unlikely, but not entirely impossible, as far as I understand. But also China did things like destroy the samples taken from patients, so tests couldn't be done on them, and they also rejected further inquiries that the WHO wanted to do. So it made things a bit harder. I think we could talk about all the difficulties COVID brought into our lives. I think it affected us in immense ways. I won't go into it, but I do feel this is quite a pertinent thing that I feel strongly about, and I hope we can find some clarity in our debate today about this.
Yeah. Awesome. Is that it?
Yeah, basically.
I do want to ask just a clarifying question, okay, for
Mm-hmm.
myself. When you say lab leak, you would expect it to would have been an accident, that it came from a lab. It's just an accident. It wasn't like released.
Well, was it created by humans, or was it the natural cause of evolution?
And you're
So
leaning more
accident or
towards
not?
about the creation, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, did we accelerate evolution? Like the RATG13 virus is the closest we found in bats to the coronavirus to itself, but it will take 40 years to turn into COVID if we just left it natural
Okay.
means. But
Yeah, because
we
I
as
once, yeah.
people can accelerate that. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make sure you're also just to figure out whether you're making the contention that it was released or anything like that, just to take it off that you're not making either of those things. You're just saying it's you're skeptical about its origin. That's it. It's not, you're not making further claims. Okay, so just making, I just wanted to
Mm.
clarify that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Gamer, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Kitty and Wade, for hosting and joining this debate. And the audience, of course, thank you for being here. So I, yeah, so my position is that viruses are they typically they've been with us, you know, for a long time as a species. They evolve naturally. They drive human evolution and that of other animals. And the best defense we have is to scientifically understand them. And so, one of the I can say one of the problems I have with the lab leak hypothesis is that it puts the blame on the people kind of trying to save us, if you like, the people who are researching new diseases. They're coming under attack, and if we don't have any people there, then we're screwed, and we're in the dark ages basically. So that's my sort of my that's why it would be extremely problematic if it was engineered just as a simple situation. That doesn't mean necessarily that it wasn't just on the basis of that alone. Um, However, okay, so I took some notes, and I'll just go through some of the points Wade raised actually before I sort of go into the zoonotic hypothesis, the spillover. So Wade mentioned he wondered why is it called novel, and I believe it's because this virus is new to humans as a species. Like we haven't encountered this type of virus before. You know, we get different strains of flu each season, for example. So they're not really that's not a new thing for us. And but because this seems to have been, if you go with the so-called zoonotic spillover origin, that is that it was in the wild and then crossed over and spilled over into our species, um, then what that would explain also why the bats are the virus is less infective against the bats because they've lived with it maybe for, you know, centuries or something, and they've been in a place where humans haven't interacted with them. There are places, and I think, yeah, you know, as China's been expanding, industrializing, and so on, and people will seek new territories for food and so on. And uh, I've visited China, I've lived there, and for me, there was some very striking diets they have in China. I went into a restaurant. They asked me, "Do you want to eat snake?" And that's like unthinkable in Europe where I live, that anyone would eat snake. And I had a sort of a guidebook and I was thinking of visiting this village, and I looked it up in the guidebook, and it said, "Oh, when the communists took power, they sent their soldiers out to every like village, and they're saying, oh, we're communists now, and so on." And uh, they found that in this village, they they were cannibals actually. So they'd survived the famine of the that happened by eating each other and eating you know, travelers and so on. So there's a lot of strange disease type incidents that could occur in this kind of environment where there's where people are going to get food desperately. And so I think that's my answer to why this virus would be low infection, like why it wouldn't be so infective against bats, but it would be against humans. And that's because the bats and the virus have coexisted. There's been selection pressure, and the ones that couldn't, that were easily infected and so on, they would have died out, and only the kind of strong, the immune, like, or the ones with technically fitness, the ones that had a high reproducibility, would survive. And in order for them to have this, they would need a strong immune defense, and it could be just there's there's random mutations in the bats, and the ones that conferred some kind of advantage that would allow them to survive this virus, they would survive, and over time that might get stronger, you know. So, but humans have been separate from them. So when we come in contact, suddenly it's like we're defenseless, and that would make this infection rate very high amongst humans. And to answer this similar related question, the Wade mentioned the MERS virus as being, I believe, 10% more deadly but less infectious. That's what my virology professors would call a self-limiting infection. That is, if something is too deadly, it'll kill its host population before it gets to spread. This is the case in Ebola. So, for example, Ebola is so deadly that if it comes to a village, sometimes it kills the whole village before they get to move around and spread it to other people. So that's my immediate take on those on that argument or that position that Wade had on that issue. And then now Wade mentioned the animals were slaughtered to prevent, and it kind of prevents a good scientific analysis of the origin there. If we can't confirm it now that they're slaughtered in the market. And on this point, I think there's two concerns. One is, yeah, scientifically, it's interesting to know exactly the mechanisms of how the virus crossed over, if that's what happened. it would have been useful to take samples from each of these animals at this market or this region. But on another public health perspective, it makes sense to cull all animals to prevent further animals being infected or further humans being infected. China has a very aggressive, or they had a very extremely aggressive policy of containment. They literally welded people into their apartment so they couldn't get out if there was any. If someone said, "Oh, I got a headache," it's like, okay, you're going to be welded into your apartment. You're not getting out. You're not. We're going to prevent it, and that's from a Western perspective. That seems very like, I don't know, totalitarian or very kind of intense. But at the same time, there is maybe a population density kind of an issue. If you have a cluster of sick people, it makes sense sometimes to limit some people very harshly rather than let a whole city of millions die. That's a kind of debate I've been having about China's response to this outbreak. Now there was a lot of points made about intelligence agencies and what they thought. So yeah, it's a bit. I'm not a I don't work for the CIA or any intelligence officers, or I got nothing. I do not know how that world operates. But I have seen a film called Snowden, which shows some software these intelligence agencies have that can sort of access any computer. And I would argue that Wuhan's laboratory would be the perfect target for such a from the software prism that the CIA supposedly have that can just go into that computer and look through all the files. I don't know if that's happened or not. I'm just speculating wildly now, and I think what would be very clear evidence for the lab leak is if the first strains found in humans in China, their genetic code, if that's typically these get sequenced, if they match closely to the strains found in the files of the Wuhan laboratory, this would be conclusive evidence that this is it leaked from there. Almost 100% conclusive. It could be it could, but it's very unlikely that they could have that sample and somehow there was a wild strain that was identical that infected someone. They could be, but at least if they had this sort of evidence, that would conclusively prove, for me at least, that it's very, very likely, and no such proof has been revealed. So when they say, "Oh, we think it was a lab leak and we're pretty sure about it, but we got low confidence in it," it's weird. It's not. They're not presenting any proof, and they're not. And they're saying, "Well, it's confidential and blah blah." But actually, there's disagreement amongst intelligence officers as well that have looked at this in the same CIA or whatever they are. And so I don't really have much confidence that they have any better argument for this than mere speculation. They could point towards bad safety or something, but I haven't really seen this exact evidence. Now, likewise, there is also the missing animal vector, as Wade correctly pointed out, that there is a bit of a mystery. Like, why are these strains I can't remember the exact sequence, and I don't have it in front of me, that Wade mentioned about a similar coronavirus. That's, I think I read it's like 96% similar to the actual virus that caused the pandemic. And so there's a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a question if that, how did these additional steps occur? And I think Wade actually gave some answer to this in that he said there was 2 different strains found around this market, and there is a process in virology known as recombination, where two virus strains infect the same host, animal, or human or animal or whatever, and then they kind of mix they get mixed in the host, and they become like a third virus. So this is a possible mechanism that could explain exactly that could support this. It could explain the missing link, if you like.
Sorry, could you repeat what that term is? That combination, like the academic term of combining in one host.
Recombination, viral recombination.
Okay. Stretch.
So I don't know if I've maybe said enough. I could just make another point that so in history, it's fairly common that this situation where you have animals living a little bit in isolation, and then humans interact with them, and their viruses spill over into our population. That's happened a few times, and usually there is a conspiracy theory that comes out at the same time that someone made it. And so with AIDS, people said, I've met people who said, oh, I watched AIDS under a microscope. It looked like a cogwheel or something, and this is evidence that it's like engineered in a lab or something. But actually, I don't, well, I don't understand why anyone would do this, actually. First, that's the first thing, but also there's no evidence for it. And so I'm naturally wary of lab leak theory, but for reasons to do with scientific reasons that I can get into later, I would say it's definitely not been engineered. That there's clear evidence that it's not been engineered. But I would like to hear what Kitteh or Wade thinks about any points I made so far, if that's okay.
Well, for that, sorry, for what I've gotten from you is a lot of the rebuttal here, and there is some. So you really have gone through the points that Wade said, and you've given your side of them. But I would like you to add to your argument as well with the evidence for that it was not engineered. Just a request from chat was that I summarize what either of your guys's both of your guys's arguments are, steel manning them essentially. And I've done a little bit of that for Wade, and I've basically said what Wade is saying is he brought up that he was coming from a place of distrust for certain institutions without throwing them all the way out. So if you put that in as the basis, but then he also brought out all these things that he finds questionable, like the all of the bits that you just pointed out as well, Atheist. The fact that we have some authorities that are uncertain about it, that they've brought up that it's a possibility. Then there's those strains. Basically, the biggest question for Wade is why did it would have taken longer for it to evolve than naturally, and it seems more likely to Wade, if I'm not mistaken, that this lab thing could have been a thing. Am I still manning you enough? Obviously, I'm
Yeah,
not saying.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Then what's happened now so far with Gamer is he's gone through all of the things that your points essentially. He's done a rebuttal. The fact that there is zootonic spillover. He explained that would have happened because of the nature of China and its expansion, and the main point of you would expect the animals to be more resistant to these viruses and humans not to be. He spoke a bit more he clarified things about SARS-1. Also commented on the limitations of freedoms the way China dealt with the virus. As well, also asking why he has a question of why would anyone engineer it in the first place. Also brought up the historically AIDS, those kinds of things where everybody tries to bring up this lab leak sort of theory. Historically, it's kind of like a knee-jerk reaction. It seems, yeah, what I'm understanding from all of this is it's just more likely that it did happen naturally. And now I'll let him go into it more about exactly the scientific reasons that he would be able to say he's leaning for. It's not that he's just going up. It feels like it's a bit more natural. He actually has reasons to doubt that it is a lab leak, right, Gamer?
Yeah. So there is, yeah. So and I'll. This is also kind of a rebuttal to an argument that the chat won't ever heard, but it's a point me and Wade have discussed in a previous chat, which I will try to steelman Wade's argument if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, Wade or Kitteh, but I believe Wade has made an argument that there is a structural protein on the surface of the virus that is apparently it has something artificial looking about it is his argument, I believe, for why it would be engineered. And
okay, yeah, he hasn't brought that up here.
He hasn't brought it up here. That's correct. But it relates to the case I'm going to make. This is a argument other people have made, and why I bring this up is because it points towards that in fact it's not likely that it's laboratory created, because well, if I could just ask Wade, is that more or less correct? That's one of the reasons or one of the arguments you might use for your position, that it's a lab leak, that it has there's something artificial about or something synthetic about the nature of the virus. Does that seem correct? Or?
I think artificial might be a bit of a strong word, but I feel that from my looking at the virus itself compared to COVID-1 and MERS, it does seem a bit of a Frankenstein. It does have two ways of infecting. It's got the furin cleavage site, and then another way of penetrating the cell, as far as I understand. I don't know if that's common, that a virus has more than one way of entry into a person. It's also got a very high infection rate. Like I said earlier, also it seems to have limited diversity across its genome compared to COVID-1 and MERS. And also, I also read up that there's no evidence of recombination events within COVID-2. I'm not sure what that means, that there's no evidence of recombination events within COVID-2.
Well, the way I understand that, just as the layman, because I'm also the layman over here, the way I understand that from what what Gamer told us, viral recombination is how these
Mm,
viruses that are in animals combine. They well, not animals, any
mm,
host that will combine within the
mm,
host. So you're saying
mm.
that there is actually limited evidence for that having occurred in any case. Like they can't find that happened.
So I think maybe a recombination event might have caused COVID-2 is the way that Atheist is explaining it. But if
Yeah.
we look at COVID-2 itself, it has no evidence of recombination events. So it's not recombining anymore.
What would that evidence be? I mean, you wouldn't know, but they've said there's no
That
evidence. Mm.
that's what I've read in some papers, some scientific papers, which I find striking and don't understand completely. And I would hope that maybe atheists could have more to elaborate on what that might mean.
Please
Right.
do. Yeah.
Well, okay. But before I
Yep.
delve into the recombination thing, I
I'll
just
keep
want to
that.
talk about
Yeah.
the Purin cleavage site.
Mhm.
So the Purin cleaving site, Purin cleavage site. It's got there's been some arguments made about them that it has these CGG genetic letters regions in it, and some people have claimed that's kind of a sign that it might be from a lab, because there's some letters in the genetic alphabet are less likely, some sequences are less probable to come into existence because of the way of the laws of chemistry and things. However, just because something is improbable, it could still happen, and it does happen. A lot of improbable things happen because of natural selection. So that's one argument for why this particular site exists, and that or why this code is associated with
Mm.
this with this structure. But another very strong indicator why that's not work. It's got to work site. But yeah, another reason why
What does that mean?
hey, does anyone else here start doing site?
Who's doing that? Where's that coming from? Kiki, I think it's your mic. I think so.
Oh, that's better. Can you hear me?
A train just crashed into the show.
It was wow. So as soon as I changed, no, hold on. No, listen, guys, hold on. Oh dear God, Kitty, guys, I did fuck all. Okay, I did absolutely nothing. I did not. I was writing my notes. Okay, and then this thing happened, as you guys say. I'm not lying. Okay, I've just changed my microphone. We don't have the virtual audio cable, so we won't get any alerts or anything like that. But as soon as I changed my microphone, Wade's sound started sounding okay.
Hmm?
Yeah. So you know what? Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so yeah, where was I? Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
there is okay, so I want to briefly talk about a method of genetic engineering that's relevant to this to knowing whether something is engineered or not. When you insert genetic information into a genome, you typically, or pretty much always, you use what's called plasmids. and let me see, they're called some endonucleases. That is, you have an enzyme that latches on to a sequence on the genome that you want to engineer, and
Mm-hmm.
this sequence is very specific. It's palindromic, meaning if you read it forwards and backwards, it's the same in the sense that you have two strands of genetic material on the DNA. It's a double-stranded helix structure, and if the letters on the top row, let's say, if you were, yeah, there's no top or up or down, but I mean, if we imagine that one strand is above the other, and you
Mm-hmm.
read from left to right on that, it would, and then you go down to the other strand and you read from right to left, it would be the same on
Mm-hmm.
same message. This palindromic sequence is what you use because there are in nature enzymes that cleave these that cut the DNA up on these sites, and scientists use these enzymes to insert their own sequence into the genome. That's so they it could, yeah, and it's fairly standard practice. Now the actual furan cleavage site that Wade was referring to, it has palindromic sequences beside it. Now, if it was engineered, this palindromic sequence would be cut open and there would be a new sequence in between, so that the palindrome wouldn't be next to each other. It would be the two segments of the palindromic sequence would be kind of split. So there would be a space between them with other code. So because there is a perfect palindromic sequence there and it's not
Mm-hmm.
disrupted, that's very strong evidence in my mind
Okay.
for it not being engineered. It means that it's more likely it's improbable evolution. Now, there's another argument as well, that in the laboratory, people have wanted to get rid of this particular structure because it's not optimal, is how I understand it. But this is only from what I read right before the show. But it's that when they use this in, because after the outbreak, a lot of labs, they've been trying to culture and isolate different COVID strands to find cures and things. And often
Mm-hmm.
they'll try and modulate this particular site that some people claim is evidence of genetic engineering, because they want it to be more infectious, so they can do successful experiments with cell lines and so on. So actually, from what I've read, this is not a very convincing. In fact, there's no evidence at all that to suggest from a genetic level that there's been any kind of engineering done on the virus at all. It's all natural on the wild strains. I mean, you may well find in some labs there is some engineering done on some strains and look a certain way, and now I'm talking about genuine medical research where people are trying to, find a cure and so on. But the wild strains, the stuff that's infected us all, there's no evidence at all, is my understanding, that should lead anyone to suspect that it's been engineered. It's got genetic kind of garbage that, it's kind of just there because it's probably natural, is my understanding of it. Now, I think Kitty asked me something specific about something, and I can't remember what it was because I got distracted by the sound train thing. that happened. But what was there? Was there another point I was going to address or something?
I've asked you. The thing that I wanted was just it was about the recombination evidence. That's all. I just reiterated the whole idea of, is there evidence that that this natural recombination has occurred? And I feel like that you did answer
Mm.
that.
I don't feel you did. You
Okay.
didn't. You didn't address the fact that I've seen some scientific reports that COVID-2 has no evidence of recombination events. What would that mean?
Right. So
Yeah, he wants evidence of it. So you
yeah,
spoke
so
about,
I think
yeah.
so now I'm kind of speculating again because I haven't read whatever paper Wade has read. So I'm speculating, but there is
Mm.
so sometimes I think what happens during a recombination event, if you have two different viruses and they have different exterior characteristics and they mix, sometimes the resulting virus will have a kind of a mix of the two previous parent viruses. It'll look like some kind of mixture sometimes, maybe it's something like that, and they haven't really found both viruses or something. I can't really say with certainty that I know actually what this
Mm.
paper is that you've read is exactly saying. It sounds quite detailed. I would need to review it to really be able to say anything sensible about it. But I think there is a sort of a general accepted view that there is a kind of there is something missing for a complete explanation, for a complete model. We would need to know an intermediate animal and exactly what happened. But as Wade pointed out, China burnt these animals, and that might have been a bit hasty, but also it might have been too slow. It depends on what you're interested in. If you're interested in saving the public, maybe that was the right thing to do. And if you're interested in finding the origin, it may have been incorrect. So that's
Mm.
something relevant people could maybe take up as a recommendation for future pandemics. That actually, if there is a suspected outbreak, maybe don't just burn everything immediately. Like try and take some samples as well. That could be one thing we learned from that. I think, yeah. So
Mm.
that's my position on that.
On the subject of the palindrome that natural viruses form,
Mm-hmm.
do they generally in the nature, do we find that with all viruses?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's. It's not necessarily the case that all viruses have these kind of things. So sometimes it's more difficult to engineer certain viruses than others because if they lack the sequence, then it would be harder. But you can also, for example, with radiation and things, you can induce mutations. So it's theoretically possible, I believe, to actually breed a virus and keep radiating it and do artificial selection until you get such a sequence. I don't know if that's really something that's normal, but I'm aware that I'm speculating that that could be a possible way of going about it if you really wanted to engineer a specific type of virus. But that would be
Mm.
I don't know how probable it is that you would get the kind of mutation, but I'm just thinking out loud now that that could be a way. But I don't believe every virus has it, and the fact that COVID does have it, the core 2 uh, virus, and it's not been opened in the way that it would be if it was engineered. is a very clear indication that it's a result of natural evolution rather than
Is it
artificial.
you said it's a clear indication, so is it um definitive that's it, or are you just saying it's more likely?
I would say it's wow. Okay, so I think I would say it's kind of definitive actually on that particular site. On that, yeah, I would say so. So that's my position, is that it's definitely not engineered. Now, if it's leaked from a lab, but it's a wild strain, like it's not engineered, but it was in the lab and then it leaked out, that's not impossible in my mind. But I have no reason to think that's what happened, and I know what it would look like if that did happen. There would be this match I was talking about earlier, that the records, because if you're in a lab and you bring in a virus, typically you want to sequence it. That's like the first thing you do. I mean, you got your vat, or you got your blood sample, or your spit sample, or whatever, and then you purify that to get the virus, or you sequence the genetic material of that virus, so that you know what you're dealing with, so you can look at the what you have actually. So that's the normal practice, I think, in if I was gonna make an educated guess. So that's what I think. So then it would be very clear if that leaked. So I haven't seen that from if I say Wade's side of the argument. There isn't there isn't this proof, and I think even if the China's scientists made a mistake and they wanted to cover it up, I think first of all, I don't think the Chinese government trusts their own population, so they might hack into it, and I don't think the U.S. Intelligence agency would trust either China's government or their scientists, so they would probably check it. But no one seems to have, with 100% confidence, found this very clear thing. So that I think there's kind of a low likelihood of that happening. Scientists who work in this sort of field, they would generally be aware of the risks, I believe. But that doesn't mean they could make a mistake, of course. But I just think there would be some very clear evidence available if something like that happened. And I don't believe that that's what's happened, but I can't rule it out completely either. But it seems like there would be a trail of evidence for that, at least in the Secret Service community or something.
Well, that's so that's how I've understood your argument, is there's just not enough evidence. It's kind of the convince me thing. And what I was going to ask you, and you've actually answered the question before I asked you, was, what would convince you? And you've basically said, this is how I've understood it, correct me if I'm wrong. What you've said is, if they could show me that they had this virus mapped out in their records, and it matched the strain that was out causing havoc, essentially, especially the first one, the first outbreak, if those codes matched up. Okay, Wade's just landing, just hold on.
Sorry.
So no worries. So if those two matched up, you would be convinced, but you aren't.
Exactly. Yeah, that is exactly my position.
Okay. Now, what I'm understanding from Wade's point of view is you have also mentioned the uncertainties about the different authorities, especially this collection of people wouldn't trust this collection of people and all of that. And what I've understood from Wade's position is I don't trust, I can't trust any of them really, or to the full extent. Am I correct, Wade?
Yep. Yeah.
Any
I
any
feel.
other yeah. Continue.
I feel like the smoking gun. We haven't found the smoking gun. We don't know who committed the murder. Some people say it's nature. Some people say it's man. If we can just find a bat or a pangolin that's got a very
COVID.
similar COVID infection, there's the gun. Or if we can find some evidence of a lab that had done research on a COVID-like virus and somehow found, made the virus, then we would know, okay, it came from that side. So I feel it's very we can only judge on probabilities. We can't give a definitive answer, and I don't know, I guess that's why the argument's still going.
For some people, I mean, others, or it's just in terms of my perception of it. It seems like the argument. Well, I mean, clearly it's still going because you guys are talking about it, but also just the idea of it being inconclusive has stuck around. This thing of we don't really know what happened there. It was very mysterious, and at least that's as far as it is. I think a lot of people came out with at least reduced trust in the authorities telling them stuff about diseases. Reduced, not zero. Some people went all the way to zero, but yeah, reduced. Anything, look, like, I think we found the line. What I like to do with debates is find the line between your guys' where your beliefs differ. You have taken, Wade, it seems like you've taken the uncertainty and said, it's not gelling. And you have said, you've also answered my question of what would change your mind. You want the COVID strains in the pangolins and the bats. That's what you want, yes?
Yep.
To convince you. And Atheist wants the matchup between the lab and the strains out there. And neither of you guys have that evidence on either side. Neither of you have. You don't have but he's got evidence that convinces him because he's saying it leans more towards this, but you don't have that definitive evidence. I think that's what we've come down to here. You don't have to agree with me. If you think that I'm being too nice and saying it's too equal, say so. Wade, you're saying Atheist, what are you on?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think maybe Wade was leaning a bit towards it was artificial, but he's maybe backed down a bit. But I think I've ruled that out for me. I mean, I don't do that, but I could be mischaracterizing his position.
But
maybe
you've ruled out for yourself mostly. You're like, listen, you've ruled out the engineering. You would actually need to be convinced otherwise by other stuff.
Yeah, like I've looked at the evidence for what would an engineered virus look like. And I think that I sent a link to both of you as a reference, kind of a scientific article that explores what it would look like if it was engineered. It goes into that a little bit.
Do we have actual images? Because people asked. I've got some starred questions.
But also, Atheist, is it not possible that COVID can be created or accelerated through natural means within a lab? If you understand what I mean. Can't they let it evolve naturally but just faster through, I don't know, giving it heat, like making all the circumstances right.
Right. So yes, I think that's possible. However, there would be records of that. You know, if you propose to do something like
Mm.
that, like either you'd be very malicious, and to me, okay, so I understand that, for example, the Wuhan lab is had international visitors and things. This isn't the kind of lab where you would do military grade research, if that's kind of, or you know, like bioweapons research.
Mm.
I don't think you would do it
Mm.
in an international lab. It would be some, you know, secret lab somewhere in a mountain or something. But yes, you could do that. What would you suggest? You could make it just naturally. You could take a bat virus and try and put it with human cells and so on, and see what happens over time. You could do that, but then you would keep records of it if you're doing it for, you know, medical reasons, and you would
Mm.
publish articles about it, and you would propose it, and it would be peer reviewed and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah. And,
so,
mhm.
so I think there would be some records if people were doing something this kind of crazy. They would definitely be very strong kind of paper trail of that.
And
You believe
do all
in that?
government? Mm-hmm. Anyone
Yeah,
say?
sorry, that you are you. That's what you're hoping. I would expect somebody that is skeptic has says, "Oh, well, probably not." But wait, continue.
Yeah, I just want to know, is it feasible that a government entity could have security privileges and not share their findings with the population? I think in America there's a lot of government agencies that do scientific research that is classified that no one knows about.
Well, okay, so again, I'm not a security service kind of specialist guy, but yeah, I think it's very likely. I mean, from history, that some government agencies, they conduct research, and then later on they say, yeah, we did this research and it went like this or whatever, and there might be research no one knows about going on, and it's very likely China does that as well. However, like I said, I don't think they would do it in a, you know, in a international civilian laboratory. I mean, maybe you're suggesting
Mm.
there's some like they do some research out of hours when no one is there or something. It just seems impractical to do that in the same lab as a civilian lab. I think if you were going to do that, you would do it in a site that's not uh, you know,
Mm.
internationally scrutinized, that's not that no one
Mm.
really knows about. Like for example, the Iranians, they've done this nuclear research, and it's been kind of top secret. You know, they don't let everyone know exactly what they're doing everywhere and things like that. And there were signs that they were doing that, and I don't see the same situation now. There's been some weird stuff, like the Chinese government hasn't shared all the data, the raw data that they have with the international community. So that's a bit of a, I would say, a point towards for you, like for your case, that there is some secrecy, or there isn't a willingness to share, but they have said, okay, we investigated it, and we didn't find smoking gun or whatever,
Mm.
and so you might say, okay, it's in their interest to say that, and you'd be right. However, as I said, I think it's likely that the US would have found it if there was something. I might be
Mm.
overconfident in the CIA's ability, and you know, I
Hmm.
don't really necessarily trust them to be competent, but I think in this scenario they would have found something like that in the database of that. And that's pure speculation. I'm not an
Mm.
authority on hacking or any of these things, but I just feel like uh, this scenario is very I think they would have found it, and they wouldn't have said then we have low confidence. They would have said we have definite proof. We have high confidence we found the exact thing if that was to happen. But yeah, that's my situation. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think if you look at what happened with COVID, if it was a lab leak from the Wuhan Institute or one of the labs in China, on purpose or accidentally, it would be like them shooting themselves in the foot. Because what happened? The whole world shut down, and China is the main producer of this planet. They make everything we buy, put it on ships, and sail it all over the planet. So basically, COVID was very bad for China. I think it hurt China immensely. So if they were involved in its leak in some way, it would be them just shooting themselves in the foot. But on the side, mm-hmm,
No, sorry, you carry on. I was I thought you were, yeah.
mm-hmm.
Apologies.
On the side of the on the skeptical, like I'm sitting here kind of talking from the skeptical side of the argument. And I feel a lot of people feel skeptical about the whole COVID situation because of our world's changed in like a day. They were like, next week you can't go back to work. We all have to wear masks. We have to get vaccines. Um, you have to stop smoking cigarettes. Um,
If you're South African,
like,
yeah.
uh,
I mean, of
I
course,
went
it
to a
was.
shop. I went to this like wholesaler no name shop that's like got cheap stuff, and I saw this pretty woman. She looks like a horse, you know, like this beautiful horse with her hair like straight, like a sandpin girl, like a really pretty girl, you
Yeah.
know, like in this shop. But she's got a mask on, and it looks like the end of the world, and she's just running and grabbing stuff, you know, like people were like freaking out, and I was like, oh, it was just and it's been the biggest money transfer in human history. Like everyone had to stand up out of their house and walk down the street to a worse house. And I don't know who ended up with the mansions, but someone did. Like the 1% got like 200% richer in like 5 years. The overreach, some people feel there's overreach from the government side into people's own autonomy, which was also a big shock. You know, like you think you're in control of your own life, and then next moment the rules come from above, and you find out I actually don't have much control over my own life. It's the government and it's these higher authorities.
Mm.
So just on that subject, I feel like a lot of people are skeptical because of the way it played out.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a question about accountability. Now, because of people's personal tragedies, inconveniences, deaths in their family, and so on, it's kind of natural to think, okay, who's responsible? And so I think the a little bit the sort of conspiracy kind of people, they're more inclined to go toward, and the religious for that, because it's like this debate reminds me a little bit about this theologian. I think he was called William Paley, who's made this very famous argument that if you walk along the beach or something, and you suddenly found a watch on the beach, you would assume, okay, this has been designed by a human artificer. This would have been, it wasn't like just random and things like that. So there's a certain type of people, they've been raised to think in this way, that if you see something that's complex or something, you would assume it's been designed. And people who are like me, I guess, they would think, okay, this, we have a new situation, and it's in and yeah, in this case, in from my perspective, it seems likely that it was natural. And so I blame, rather than blame the scientists who are trying to figure things out as a first thing, although I don't completely rule it out, I would blame diets and the animal market industry as being they need to be better regulated. In fact, sometimes people ask me, I tell them I'm a vegetarian, and they say, "Oh, is it because you like animals?" And I joke, "No, it's because I hate plants." And then after I make that joke, I say, "No, the real reason is I'm against Ebola pandemics." And then they're like, "What?" Because they have a lot of people have preconceptions about why someone would be vegetarian, and if you say, yeah, it's because plant cells and animal cells are so different that it's less likely you get a disease crossover from plants, then it just really throws people because they've never really heard that argument before. And then if when I've sort of gone into that, I'll say, yeah, also it's because of the second law of thermodynamics, which means if you have an industry like the food industry, and there's a lot of different steps in it, you get your, so I guess the way some might say it is you have soya production, and the animals eat the soya and the humans eat the animals. Then you have energy loss in this process at each step. Like if we just eat the soya directly, it's more energy efficient, one could argue, and I do argue that sometimes, in terms of both ecological footprint and energy conservation. It's a whole other topic, but anyway.
I think we reserve that for another debate.
Sure, yeah. So
Vegetarian
anyway,
versus carnivore debate.
Yeah, but so the carnivorous diet proves that it's shown itself to be ineffective or it causes human suffering in terms of Ebola, possibly COVID, possibly AIDS. It just it's the gift that keeps on giving, pandemics and mass death. So I think that's the side that maybe needs to be scrutinized more, but that's inconvenient to people because
that's a
they're
new.
not willing to change their life. They've been raised to think, okay, we're animals, we're carnivores, we should eat this, and instead of like facing up to that, yeah, it could lead to serious pandemics, and I could lose my loved ones. They don't want to take that step. Well, and it's understandable, but it's yeah.
So, guys, I want I would like to. Have you guys? Do you feel like you've gotten your arguments out?
I just
do you
want
feel like
to on that
yeah?
on the last point of atheists there, I feel a bit different. Atheists, you said that we evolved with viruses since before humanity, like animals. Viruses were here from the start, antagonizing life and asking it to evolve to higher forms. And I don't necessarily agree with your into totality in what you say there. I feel we shouldn't necessarily avoid viruses completely, but actually embrace them.
Okay, so Gamer says he didn't say that.
Yeah,
but let me just make my point, and then
I don't believe there's a goal to evolution. It's not like we're going to a higher place as there's a predetermined precision that we're trying to get to. It's more like
but if you've been exposed to a certain virus, your body releases antibodies to that virus, and now you have those antibodies. So if that virus comes by again, it does nothing to you.
Exactly, yeah.
But if you avoid it like a bubble boy, then eventually any virus will kill you. So I'm just saying, face the viruses, overcome the viruses, get the antibodies, and become a Ubermensch.
Yeah, that's I can sort of agree with that. There's just one dimension to that, is if we get exposed to those viruses and then we evolve defenses against them, then maybe that virus goes extinct and we have this genetic garbage kind of that's defending against this virus that no longer exists, which would be a bit like, do we really need that? I mean, that's debatable, but yeah, we have this wonderful system, the adaptive immune system, that allows us to be a little bit defended against viruses that hasn't even come into existence yet. If everything works as it should, when we get invaded by a virus, our adaptive immune system starts analyzing, well, not like humans analyze, but it breaks this virus apart, and it triggers this process where we generate antibodies until one of them fits like a lock and key. It's called the lock and key theory of immunization. And then we memorize it. We have these cells that kind of called memory cells, which then stores this antibody. And if we get infected again, they will proliferate. So we get, our whole body is flooded with these antibodies. And so typically why we feel ill, you know, when we get sick, it's actually our immune response. It's going in and doing a lot of damage to these viruses, and that makes us feel a bit weird, because it's kind of a heavy battlefield going on inside the body at that point. So yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. It's better to be. I like going out and getting exposed to the environment rather than just being a bubble boy. But actually, I am kind of like that at the moment. I stay home a lot and play games.
Same.
But I should get out more. But yeah, it's true. Some people, if you're out and about, you kind of get, you know, movement and all that. I believe that's it's an important aspect to thrive in the wild. Yeah, I could agree with that.
Alright.
Cool, man.
Well, one of the last things I wanted to do, because I want to wrap it up in terms of the debate part of it. I've understood both sides of it. Is there do you guys want to do any closing things? I know I didn't say that we weren't gonna. I didn't say we were gonna do closing, but I've understood both of your sides. I wanted to also place your attention on a poll that I put in chat, where I asked if people are think it's a lab leak or natural, and we are at 93% lab leak. So
Whoa.
yeah.
Wanna
Interesting, but yes, any final remarks to try and get your last points out, or I don't know, I felt like everyone's arguments got out.
I could say I think we could. If I'll sort of start. That's okay.
Yeah.
I think Atheist, you brought up a good point about the fact that you feel that the scientific community is under attack, and that a lot of people are not trusting the scientific community as much as they used to. And I think we mentioned some of the points why that might be. But I don't think that should happen, that people should hide away or retract from science, or see science as some evil force, or some force that's trying to fool them in some way. Also, I've seen that politics have gotten involved in this situation, where political science is kind of in a master-slave relationship with all the other sciences. What they can investigate, what they can't investigate, what they can report on, what they can't report on. So transparency, honesty, openness, I feel we need a push for that. And also that if you are a scientist or a specialist coming with your report, do not come and try and tell people what to think necessarily, but to show your case and the probabilities and allow them to kind of come to a conclusion on their own in a certain way. Like, I feel like people shouldn't come in with like black and white. They should leave it nuanced for people to think for themselves. Because if I look on both sides of the argument, you find a lot of people who say it can only be this way, it can't be the other way. And then if you go to the other side of the argument, it can only be this way, it can't be the other way. So I feel like we should have more transparency, and we should try and be more open about these things in the future and so on. You know?
Gamer, anything?
Well, I think if I've learned anything from this poll is that I'm terrible at debating. So I should stay in my lane and just go back to gaming and maybe yeah, and maybe learn how to debate. But
No?
maybe people were convinced before.
Yes, this is the thing. The poll, Cameron has said the poll is meaningless without a before and after. So that's on me. I didn't put a before and after. So you don't know if you've it could have been 100% and you've won someone over. You don't know that. So don't take that away from it.
But
I
yeah,
think you did very well, Matthias.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was also impressed actually, Wade, with you. You seem to have invested a lot of energy into this topic, and it was good debate, in my opinion. I'm not sure if I clarified anything for anyone, but at least I feel like I've been true to myself and honest and transparent about what I think and where I don't know, and what I think ought to be, well, what I feel are areas that could be explored better in the future, such as not just destroying all the animals in the market like that. That's a suggestion for clarity
Yeah.
in the future event.
What I really want to tell you guys is just again, like I know you guys probably you're seeming like you're upset that you didn't land up hitting each other essentially, but we knew this when we spoke about what your guys just generally, they didn't have this debate previously, but just generally what your positions were, so that I knew what you guys would be talking about. We kind of knew that you both have opinions, and that's opinions. You both have beliefs. Okay, this is the truth for you. This is the truth for me, and what the exercise really is going to be is about what each side giving the evidence that makes them think a certain way, and that's what I wanted. And you guys have done that. You've given me your guys' reasoning for what you believe, and that's what I wanted from the discussion. So I really appreciate both of you doing that, and then also the fact that you guys were you actually gave each other grace when you agreed with something, which you actually did, which hardly ever happens in a debate. When you said, "Oh, that's a good point," like the and whatever like that, that's a good thing as well. I really appreciate that. And Atheist, I didn't consider a lot of the things that you had actually brought through. So I was one of the people that was just like, well, yeah, it's Salablik. That's just what I believe. And I've got more. I've learned from you, is what I'm saying. I've got more skepticism, and I think that is why this poll looks this way, is because of that low trust thing. You're trusting this is the evidence that's in front of me. You're not saying it's foolproof that you did acknowledge that there are limitations and people can cover up things, but you're like, based on what I know, it really is really it's looking very easily like it's a natural occurrence. There's not enough evidence to sway me the other way. You would have to do a lot of work and give me a lot of stuff. Yeah.
If I may just make one last point, I think there's when we're dealing with human kind of well, the lab leak theory, that
Mm-hmm.
the evidence would be by its nature quite easily available to find if that if it
Mm-hmm.
was there. But
Yeah.
because of the animal thing, I mean the animals, they could be pretty much, they could be anywhere. It could be a stray cat, it could be, any, well, maybe, yeah, I'm just saying stray cat as an example, but there's a lot of potential candidates for the intermediate vector that was between the bat and the cat, and the human. So it would be harder to find the exact animal. So there's a difference in how likely the police or a scientific investigator would find these two pieces of evidence. It would be very easy to find the lab leak evidence if it existed, and it
Mm-hmm.
would be very difficult to find the
Just natural.
natural animal reservoir. That's
That's
hey.
that's very well worded for my brain. I see what you mean. That's how you're
Yeah.
weighing up the evidence. I want to ask you guys because I've got some before you guys. Thank you so much for being here as long as you have. Before we get to some of the chats, I just wanted to get your opinions on. We can talk about it, just a normal discussion. I wanted to ask, okay, just definitively, have you have you changed your mind on anything? Have you moved a little bit? So I know we've said what we've gotten out of the debate, but just again, just to reword that question, has your mind changed a little bit in any direction? Wade and then Gamer.
I would say Atheist has brought some things to my attention that I didn't know before, and he's made some things clearer to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I'm still skeptical. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
put it that way.
Yeah, I think we knew that one. And Gamer, anything from them?
Well, so essentially, I haven't changed my mind on anything except
Mm-hmm.
one thing, and there's one thing Wade asked me that I didn't know the answer to, that I might actually try and see if there is an answer to that, and that's on the question of recombination. He asked me, what would it, can we tell if something's been recombined? And I don't have a clear idea of the answer to that question in my head right now, so I might consult my textbooks or look online and see
That's pretty cool.
if there is something I could find out about on this particular issue. But on everything else, I haven't really changed my mind on anything or anything like that. And but on that one point, I kind of made a note to myself. Yeah, I should try
Look it
and
up. Yeah.
see if there is something like this that I could learn
Yeah,
about to
that's not
make.
gonna. That hasn't changed your mind. It's just that you want to look into it further.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I've gotten out of this.
I
guess.
think that's how these debates work on people. Is that they might have had all the certain arguments, and I'll just say any debate that you experience online, where you might have had your set of arguments that you usually walk around with, and counter arguments that you usually encounter, and then you actually sometimes get something new, and then you go and look it up, and that could be the gateway to changing your mind. But usually we don't change our minds in a debate. That's not usually how it goes. That's why we're in a debate. We would have changed our minds beforehand. Right, so going into just a few messages before I let you guys go and have lives. We've got Sokav asked a question earlier on. He was basically, because Gamer, you said something about making an educated guess. And basically he just asked something. Let's see if we could glean where he was at with this. He said, educated guesses based on what constraints? Do other parts of the world operate within the same constraints? Does that open up the possibilities? So I think that's got to do with when you were saying, well, if these labs were doing gain of function research and all of that stuff, and they caused this lab leak, there would be records and things like that. So I guess what Socavs is saying is, well, do we really know how such a lab operates? Any comments on that?
Well, yeah, like we do know some things about how like any kind of microbiology lab, virology lab works, because there's a sort of there's a process that all scientists take part in, where we catalog our research. There's a quote in one of my chemistry textbooks where someone is in their garage as a kid and they're mixing things, and their dad comes along and says, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm doing chemistry. I'm like mixing water with oil or something." And his dad says, "Well, the difference between just mucking about in your garage and doing science is that you make records, quantify your results and things." And then he became like a scientist and professor or whatever. But yeah, and that's true. Actually, the difference is that scientists would, when they test things, they typically quantify them, their results, their things, and they make very careful records if you're a good scientist. And some people could work in a lab and not be a good scientist, but typically this is so standard that I would argue that it's very likely that there would be records of even proposed experiments in a civilian laboratory. And yeah, that's my take on that. Does that answer the question? Or
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Wade, would your answer be, I don't trust them, so I don't know?
Well, my question would be, can you go Breaking Bad and make a virus at home?
Well, yes, you can actually.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. Why would you do that?
Because you're
Good
evil.
question.
Like,
You want money?
No, you wouldn't make money from it.
You just
Well,
kill
you
people.
could if you were like, okay, but that's crazy. The thing about making a bioweapon, okay, I'm very against bioweapons. I think they're worse than nuclear weapons, in my opinion, because a nuclear weapon will be very selective, and it'll target someone, and that area is, screwed for a long time. But a virus, on the other hand, it's permanent. If it is created and it's released, it will circulate. It could circulate the earth until
It's
the
not
end
one
of
and done.
humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it changes over time. So even if I was an evil scientist, I made a vaccine, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna make a virus, and then I'm gonna infect everyone, and then I'm gonna sell my vaccine. Chances are my vaccine won't work in the future, and my family might die, my friends might die, everyone I love, everyone I hate, they could all die. The entire species could go. Well, that's unlikely, but
Don't
there's
mess with
usually
it.
someone. But
Yeah.
this is like, for me, that would be the worst. It's a common theme in science fiction and stuff. In Resident Evil, I think they have a plot like that. But it's not really. It's just, to my mind, it's not sensible at all. No matter if your interest would be to make money, if it's to hurt another country, if it's to do any of these things, it just
It's not
just
worth
doesn't
it.
make sense if you have an evolutionary kind of frame of mind. If you're thinking in some other way, maybe someone could do it, maybe if they were, but then it's unlikely they would be in that position. Hopefully they would have been selected out of the education and everything, and wouldn't have access to those things, I hope. But actually, I've met people who have strange views in high places.
Who should not be in academics, maybe. Who shouldn't
Yeah.
have been. I hope that they were kept out.
Yeah, well, they won't, but yeah,
Oh, fuck.
but yeah, that's my take on that. Yeah.
Okay. Next question from chat is, do he trust China? So I want to ask either of you, do you guys trust China? We're going to get nuked. Well, I'll stream. But do you trust China? How far do you trust China?
Atheist.
Well, okay, so I don't trust China. I think if you go, like I've been to China, and if you,
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there with someone, and I said, oh, um, like who was Mao? Because I was young when I went there, and I didn't know much about China's history. And this guy was like a lawyer, and he just started talking about, oh yeah, Mao was like Stalin and blah blah. Everyone starved to death and this and that. And these suddenly some people turned up and they had some like document and they asked us to sign it. And he said, well, unless you translate every single word of this document, I'm not gonna, sign it. And maybe they'd heard. I don't know. It was a weird thing, but yeah, typically you can't really criticize the government in China, and you can't really. There's a lot of restrictions on freedom, but also I think I don't think China would want to kill their own Like I trust most governments don't want to kill their own governments, so like I
Their own
trust them.
population. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think they would engineer a virus to kill their own population. They would
Yeah.
be more likely to just say have one child each rather than kill their whole
Kill people.
yeah with the virus. They might execute people, and well, they do execute people, and then the family has to pay for the bullet as well. But they don't. I don't think they would do it with a virus. It's if that was the plot. But in terms of trust, I trust that scientists, if they're in China or anywhere else, they would know the scientific method, and they would have some understanding of the dangers of diseases let loose. I think that's more of a general trust in scientists. But in
Yeah.
terms of I don't really trust China. I'm sure they do a lot of they don't have patent laws and they don't have good human rights laws and stuff like that. But it's not like I think they want to just kill the whole planet with a virus or something. So there's I would, and I don't know, like I trust my European government here better than China in terms of being
Fair point.
self-critical and stuff. I think they lack that. So that is also a point in Wade's favor. I think China doesn't like to. They have an expression in China like you don't want to lose face, which means if you've done something wrong, you wouldn't want it to be public or something. And but that doesn't mean that that it leaked from a lab just because they don't like to be scrutinized. But it would be better if they were transparent with everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that the conspiracy theory people can rest their case, or
So this distrust for China doesn't make you you that exists with it doesn't make you skeptical of what has come out about the virus itself and all of that.
Because just because I don't like someone, for example, and I'm not saying that's I've met people in China who are fine, but if let's say I really hated China for some reason, and then there's an epidemic or a pandemic, that's not enough for me to say, okay, they did it, like from a lab, and they created it in a lab to kill us. That's not sufficient at all in my mind. You need the actual, or in a criminal case, if you don't like someone and someone dies, you don't just blame someone you don't like, thinking they did it because they did, because I don't like them. I mean, you have to show the sequence of events, the murder weapon, the motive, not necessarily the motive, but You need a link of causality linking
Mhm.
the incident with the criminal conclusively,
Mm.
and so that's not for me as that's not the most important question whether I trust them or not. For the lab leak theory
Oh, I
thing,
understand.
I would need the evidence, not just
Mm.
whether I like them or not. That's my position.
Cool.
I'd say China is very predictable. You
Mhm.
can kind of predict how they respond to certain things. They're very rigid in their reactions, and in that sense, I trust them.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you trust them to be China about it.
Yep.
So they're
Yep.
going to be in their own interests. They're not going to try and act like we're everybody's friend and whatever. They're just going to say what's best for them, and you can trust them for that. Yeah. Okay, I can see that. Mm. Okay. I've got one more request of you guys that comes from Creamage, our musician, our helpful mod. He says, ask Wadey and Gamer to insult each other at least once. It's not a debate otherwise. So, have at it, gents.
Cream of the crop. Freaking hell. Mm.
I missed that. Could you say it again?
Insult each other.
All
Otherwise,
right.
it's not a debate.
Atheist,
Yeah.
atheist, I can't understand how someone who doesn't believe in God can be such a person that's so truthful.
Mm.
Oh well.
That's like a compliment. It's
That
like
was
a
a compliment.
backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. And I can't believe that someone who does believe in God would think that someone would create a virus, which creation ought to be reserved for God.
Ah.
Mm.
Was that sufficient, guys? I mean, I think they were very reasonable. For this reason, Lord Cameron says that these guys completely failed to test Kitteh. Next debate is Destiny versus President Sunday. Listen, I appreciate how this debate has gone. The fact that the first one that I go through is not this crazy back and forth one. So it's what I needed as my first one. And I still think that it's challenging to keep track of people's what they're trying to say and all of that stuff. And please do also just let me put in the comments and whatever what you think I should have done differently, as well. I'll appreciate that. And yes, I also expect that kind of feedback from you guys. Not now on stream, but just think about it. From Wade and Atheist, what you think I can improve on.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think it
guys
was
good?
a bit of a complicated one. Science, and there's a lot to understand when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's a
I
content, but
agree.
it is still a contentious issue that people still have a lot of emotions behind it. But I think just because of the way you guys approached it, it wasn't. Yeah, I do also love the respect. Yeah, the fact that you guys approached it with respect made it a lot easier to understand. The audio, obviously, Mark, but yeah, we'll hopefully next time we have Gamer on, we'll have his audio sorted. It's apparently like, listen, watch, I'll do it. I'll show you guys. If I try and put his audio higher, okay, because currently it's automatically adjust mic volume. If I put his volume, say 200%, speak, Atheist Gamer.
Yeah. Hello. How are you?
You see,
Can you
it
hear
goes.
me?
It's the
Not
most
to do
annoying
to-
thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there we go.
I guess I need to learn how to or get a better mic or learn to speak loudly.
Yeah. No, you're gonna have to yell. But okay, I've got your fixed your mic. There you go. All right. And yeah, that's it, guys. That is it for the first moderated thing. Put anti-X and pro-X below each, including their names, to be honest. Yes, that's true. That's a good idea, Creamage. Love it.
I'm not on X though. But
no, he's just saying in terms of the so people remember who's arguing for what. That's a good idea. I just had the banner underneath, and I was not showing your guys' names, so. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. I think we're gonna do this again, do this more often. We'll suggest what you should do in people in the chat if you haven't done it is join the Discord, because that's what that is what Wade and Gamer did in order to have this discussion. If I will start figuring out how to actually just do normal call-ins like Wick does, and then maybe we can have more debates on the fly. But right now, this prepped thing was really good for me. For the rest of the week, guys, what I'm going to be doing is, okay, so tomorrow we're going to continue with the Charlie Kirk moderation. We're finishing that one off. Wednesday is off, then off for video editing, and then Thursday, who knows? Point is, we're continuing. Just look for my notifications, and I will summon thee. Remember to like the stream, and appreciate it again, Wade and Atheist, so much for being my first participants.
thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Wash your hands, everybody. Have a nice life. Okay, thanks, bye.
I'll see you next time, chat. I hope you had fun. We had a pretty great time, but now we're done. If you disagreed with me, that's okay. It's fine to be complete.